Sugar addiction. We hear about it everywhere. We hear about it in the news, in the media. We hear about it. I hear about it in a lot of the podcasts that I listen to. I hear about it from clients that reach out to me or clients that I'm working with, people who reach out to me on social media. I've even experienced it myself, right? This insatiable draw towards sweets and towards sugar and towards things that don't make us feel good, but maybe taste good in the moment. And the truth is, the struggle is real, right? Not only are these foods easy to access, right? They're everywhere, they're all around us, but they can be really hard to avoid. They're at all of the social gatherings, all the holiday parties, all the sporting events, right? These foods are all around us and can be really hard to avoid. And they give us that quick hit of pleasure, right? That quick dopamine, that quick escape from some of the stresses or the uneasiness or the difficulties of life. And the truth is, it can be one of the lesser evils in terms of vices that we might turn to, right, to manage some of those stresses and some of those challenges. But if you are like me, you know how awful it feels, right, after a sugar binge, right? It does not feel good. It doesn't feel good to your body. It doesn't feel good to your soul, right? It doesn't really feel good. And if you're like me, you know the futility of trying to manage that through control and restriction, right? It works for a little while until eventually it stops working and leads you right back to that cycle of not feeling great, feeling guilty, feeling not feeling good physically. But here's the thing that I want you to know. There is hope for change. And I say that because I've experienced it. I say that because I've lived it. You do not have to stay stuck in that cycle. You do not have to stay in that place of the continual draw towards those foods that you would rather eat less of, that you don't feel as good eating. And today I want to teach you how I overcame my insatiable draw towards sweets, maybe what might be labeled as a sugar addiction today, and what I hope will help you to do the same. So let's dive in. Okay, so let me just set the stage for you by sharing with you the story of my own sort of relationship with sugar, right? I was that kid who always had candy wrappers all around, right? I was that kid with that sweet tooth that was never really satiated. I was the kid who, when we would go to my grandparents, had a big pile of candy wrappers all around me where my siblings seemed to kind of self manage and know when they had had enough, right? So even at an early age, I sort of noticed that I had this draw. I had this sweet tooth that was always calling me. When I was a teenager, I decided I wanted to be healthier. I didn't really have a lot of skill or knowledge around how to do that. And so what I chose to do was to go a year without sugar. And when I did that, I got a lot of praise. People told me I had a lot of self-control. I also lost some weight, which got me even more praise and attention, right? So it seemed like I discovered something that was working really well for me. By the time I got to college, I was using this restriction, this sugar restriction, as a way to manage my body image and manage my weight. But what happened, the dark side of what seemed like such a good method, was that inevitably it would lead to a place where I would end the restriction, I'd begin eating sugar again, eating more and more and more, to where I felt out of control with it and even led to some binging behaviors, and then would feel absolutely awful, right? Which then would lead me back to the restriction. And in that coming back to the restriction, I believed that this would be it. This would be the time when I finally kicked this for good, right? I finally overcame this for the last time and I could go to a place of balance. After this sort of like moment of restriction, I'd go back to balance, right? That's what I believed. What I didn't understand was that I was actually perpetuating the cycle, right? And setting myself up for failure. And if this resonates with you, I want to offer to you that there is an off ramp from this cycle, right? There is a way out. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what is happening here. This is the classic sort of guilt deprivation cycle, which we've talked about before. I've talked about before in this channel. But with the guilt deprivation cycle, guilt and deprivation sort of sit on this seesaw. And when one is high, the other is low, right? And as the balance flips, one rises, the other drops, right? They sit in seesaw. And so as the deprivation is low, because we're eating whatever we want, whenever we want, and like sugar all the time, right? Deprivation is low, right? We're eating all the time, but guilt's really high. I feel awful. I feel like I shouldn't, I wish I wasn't eating this way. I'm blaming it for the way that I'm blaming it for my health. I'm blaming it for the way that I feel. I'm blaming it for the way that I look, right? Guilt is really, really high. And at that high point, it holds a lot of activation energy, right? A lot of activation energy that you use to then deprive, right? I'm going to use all of that energy and that the energy that I'm holding around the guilt to drive deprivation, right? And so I start to restrict and restrict and restrict. And as I do, the guilt drops. I'm feeling great, right? I'm being successful. I'm not eating the sugar. I've been a month now. I've been 2 months, and the guilt is really, really low. But look what it has pushed up, right? The deprivation. I haven't eaten sugar now for 2 months, right? 3 months, 4 months, whatever, a week, whatever the timing is, right? Now I'm feeling the deprivation. And that deprivation at that high point is holding a lot of activation energy, right? And is that in that place of high energy, it starts to push back, right? And there's no guilt there to resist it, right? And so now I start to eat. And I think, oh, I'm just going to eat a little bit. It's going to be fine. And I eat and I eat and I eat, right? The deprivation starts to drop and the guilt is really high. And we just end up in this seesaw, right? Back and forth between either deprivation or guilt, really only giving the other side power, right, as we act on whatever it is that's really high and energized in that moment, right? As we act on it, we give the other side power and we just go back and forth. So that's not helpful. It's not healthy. It feels really good as the guilt is low and we're taking action, but inevitably the guilt's going to go back up high again, right? Not a good cycle to be in. Okay, so here's the solution out of the seesaw, right? To get off the seesaw, you actually have to make peace with sugar. Because every time you drive that deprivation up, your system starts to believe that sugar is restricted. It's a restricted substance, right? Because even if it's all available around us, which it is, you are restricting it. And in that restriction, when it becomes available, it drives this behavior of I've got to eat it when I can get it. Because I have no idea when I'm going to restrict it for myself again, right? When the restrictions are going to come into play. So I've got to eat it when I can get it, not because I want it, not because I feel good, not because it's actually helping my system or my health goals, but just because I can get it, right? So that deprivation drives a lot of that, like eat it when you can get it, overeat it because it's here. Making peace with food takes all of that energy out and allows you to really notice and attune to what you actually want, right? I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step how to do that, but that's kind of the principle of what's happening. So let me share with you why this is so important before we go into the details of the steps. This literally changed my life. It brought me from a place of sugar binges to where I eat very little sugar because I just don't even desire it. It's a huge shift, right? From being that kid with a sweet tooth and candy wrappers all around to really not desiring it really very often, right? I can eat it. I can tell very quickly when I've had enough. And sometimes I still get to that point where I've had too much and I can feel it and I adapt and I adjust. And I just don't desire it. I eat it on occasion where it enhances the meal or the flavor or to enjoy a dessert with my family, but it's not something that I crave. And it's not something, most important, that I binge on anymore. It literally changed my life. And that's why I want to offer this to you. Okay, so let me just offer you some really important principles before we go through the steps. First of all, this is not about opening the floodgates. It's not about eating as much as you want whenever you want, right? That's sort of where we came from. That is the reaction to the deprivation, and that is not what we're talking about. That's really important. The second principle that is really important to this process is going slow. We go slow to go fast, right? And so we will pick one food as we go through the steps. You're going to pick one food to do this with. But I want that will speed up your process in the long term. And there's a principle that I think really makes this visually kind of make sense. It's a principle called the pickle principle, which I learned from Dick Schwartz, who is the creator of the IFS model. And the pickle principle, if you can imagine a jar of pickles, it's really hard to get that first one out, right? It's packed tight, it's snug in there, and you have to get a good grip and pull, and usually pickle juice gets all over, right? That first one out is hard. But once you get the first pickle out, the others come more easily. And that's true here too, right? We're going to go slow. We're going to pick one food to do this with. But as you do, just know that you're loosening things up in your system. You're rebuilding that trust. You're rebuilding the body attunement, and it goes quicker with each food that you then shift to. So go slow it down to go fast. Okay, that's an important principle. The third thing that's absolutely critical here is you need to make sure that you are eating, that you are feeding your body. Because if you are hungry, just that drive for hunger will drive an excessive intake of sugar, right? Because you're just trying to get energy. You're just trying to feed your body, right? It's a physiological drive to be fed. And then you'll eat the sugar, which isn't very satiating, which will then drive you to eat more, right? And we'll call it a sugar addiction. That's not what's happening. It's not a sugar addiction. The problem is you're not feeding your body. So for me, what that looks like is eating every 3 hours. That's what that looks like for me. It might be different for you. Every 3 hours, I'm eating some fat, some fiber, and some protein, right? Protein, fat, and fiber every time I eat. That ensures that my body is fed and doesn't have that excessive drive to eat. Okay, so those principles are really important and will set you up for success on these steps that we'll go through next. Okay, so let's get into it. These are the steps to make peace with food. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to make a list of all of the foods that you feel like you do not have control around, right? Any of the foods that you feel like are difficult for you to eat with moderation, that when you eat it, you feel like you just can't stop. It could be maybe something like soda, it might be cookies, it might be candy, it might be ice cream, it might be even foods that aren't sweet, right? It could be chips, it could be anything, right? That you feel like you sort of have that out of control behavior around. You're just going to make a list. It might be long, it might be short. It doesn't really matter. It's really not about a right number of foods. It's what feels true to you. So just start with that list. That's step one. Step two is to pick one food on that list. One food. And here is important. When you pick that one food, you need to pick one flavor of that food. So you might pick ice cream and then you just narrow it down to the flavor. Maybe it's cookie dough ice cream, right? Maybe it's mint chocolate chip, whatever. If it's baked goods, you need to pick one baked good. Maybe you pick brownies, or even more specific, mint brownies. That would have been one of mine back in the day when I was beginning this process. If it's candy, you pick one candy, right? One variety. Maybe it's M&Ms. Specific M&Ms without peanuts, right? You're getting one flavor of this one food. Once you have that food, you're going to go and buy that food more than you would eat or want or need in a single setting, right? So you're purposely buying it in abundance. You're purposely buying extra. Okay, that's all step two. Pick that one food, one flavor, and then go buy it. Buy a lot of it. Step three is to give yourself permission, full permission to eat that food whenever you want. And as I say that step, I want to invite you to notice what that might surface in your system, right? Is there a little bit of fear? Is there reservation? Is there some like, no way, right? That surfaces. Just notice that. It's totally fine. It's totally fair. Let's just notice what that response is. But that's an important step. Give yourself permission to eat that one food, that one flavor, whenever you want. Okay. Step four is to now eat that food and pay attention, right? Pay attention. Pay attention to how it tastes. Pay attention to how much you're enjoying it. Pay attention to how that shifts as you're eating it and each time you're eating it. You're just gathering data. You're just building familiarity with that food. You're just building the relationship with that food and your body and your system. Okay, so you're paying attention. You're eating it with full attunement and attention. Step five is to notice when it feels like you've had enough and give yourself permission to eat it again whenever you want. Could be in an hour, could be at the next snack, the next meal, tomorrow morning. It doesn't matter. Whenever you want it again, you give yourself full permission. And here's a way to tell if you've really given yourself permission. If you find it hard to stop, if you kind of start speeding up or feel resistance to checking in, you haven't given yourself that permission yet. When you've given yourself that full permission, you will be able to say, okay, I'm going to put this down and I'll pick it up later, right? I'll eat more later because I know that I can. I can stop now because I know that I can. And what that freedom allows you to do is fully attune and build, again, that awareness. You're building that relationship with that food. When have I had enough? What's my experience like when I don't really desire this anymore, right? What's that experience like when I've felt that point of satisfaction? Okay, so those are the 5 steps. Make your list, pick one food and buy it in abundance. Give yourself full permission. Eat with full attention. And then give yourself permission to eat it again. when you choose to stop. Okay, those are the steps. And the more that you do that with the one food, you will notice the hold of that food starts to loosen. And your awareness of how much you actually desire that food starts to increase. And that's what we're building. Just one food. Once you've nailed that, then you can move on to the next one. Okay, so just to bring this to close, first of all, I want to acknowledge that this can be a really scary step as you rebuild your relationship with your body and rebuild relationship with food. So if it feels scary to you, you're right on track. It feels scary to me as well. It feels scary to many of my clients. So that's normal. It's okay. I offer it to you because it literally changed my life, and I believe it can change yours too. So that is why I think it's worth leaning into that fear. Again, I want to encourage you that if this resonates with you or it's something you want to try, that you go slow. That's so critical to the success of this process. Go slow and just pick that one food that you are going to make peace with first. And as you go slow, just notice what feels like the right step for you. Maybe you're ready to try that one food, or maybe you just want to entertain the idea that you could possibly do this, that you could give yourself that permission. Wherever you are in your journey, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And wherever you are in your journey, you can take that first courageous step to change. So I would love to hear in the comments, what is that first courageous step that you are ready to take? And just know that I'm cheering you on and that I'm here to support you and that I believe that it will change your life and that I believe that change is possible. So comment below. I'd love to hear what you are ready to do. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos on how you can build that life of health and well-being that are centered in body attunement, body trust, and connection to yourself, connection to your food and your experience. It's all about self-trust. You can also go to nourishwhoyouare.com if you want support on this journey, because this can be something that may be difficult to do alone. There's a lot to unpack oftentimes as you begin this journey. So if you go to nourishwhoyouare.com, you can learn more about what that looks like to go through the coaching process with me. You can sign up for a free coaching call where we will do a little bit of coaching and also talk about what that coaching process looks like. And you can ask any questions and just sort of understand if it feels like the right thing for you. So nourishwhoyouare.com, the link is in the video description. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.